All right. Good morning, everybody. Thanks for joining me. Sorry, a couple minutes late getting on here, but we are ready to rock. So go ahead and get your questions posted on there in the upper right hand corner. Um, and I believe it's on the right hand side of the screen. You'll see where you'll be able to ask questions. If you're on a mobile device, it will be most likely below. I think it takes that. The chat and it puts it below the video. So go ahead and you can ask your questions there if you're on mobile device. So we'll go ahead and get started here. So there was a question that went late yesterday. I just wanted to cover that real quick. Larry asked about closed captioning on the videos. None of the videos have closed captioning ability, but pretty much all of the course videos have transcripts. So below the video, you'll see some tabs. I believe it'll say summary, it'll say practice keys, and it'll say transcript. If you click on that, it'll give you kind of a transcript of the whole video. And that's only for course videos. So we're talking top speed golf system videos, power turn, the move, course videos. Vault videos will not have any transcripts or closed captioning on them. So just a heads up there. But we do have them on all of the course videos. On YouTube, you can get closed captioning on there. Those videos do have the ability to do that, but our videos on the website are hosted by Vimeo, and they don't have, at least the ones that we have, whatever we have doesn't have the ability to do that. All right. So Kenneth asks, if my maximum 6-iron clubhead speed is 83 miles per hour, what should my driver max be? It is maxed out at 90 miles per hour right now. It should be a little bit more than that. Your average tour player swings their 6-iron probably around 100 miles per hour. I can actually look that up real quick. I'm pretty sure it's around 100 miles per hour, and that's 113. I know that for clubhead speed. I don't have the and there we go. So should be able to find that real quick. So if you're ever wondering like what the PGA Tour averages are, TrackMan, they'll release every few years a document that shows what the average clubhead speed is. Okay, so I was a little off on that. So 6-iron is 92 average for a tour player, then 113 for driver clubhead speed. So it's not going to be like a 21 mile per hour difference for you. If you were thinking in terms of, compared to swinging 83 miles per hour, I would say you probably should be swinging your driver. If you're swinging your 6-iron 83, I would say upper 90s should be probably where you should be swinging your driver, somewhere in there. That's what you would expect, maybe 100 miles per hour. So one thing that could be happening there is you could have a driver that is maybe not set up for you quite well. I don't know if you're fitted for your driver or not. But sometimes drivers are too long, that you can't quite handle the length, or they're too heavy. Maybe the head weight and shaft weight or anything like that doesn't suit you, or anything like that. So, it's possible those could be issues that are going on there. So, if you want to get to where you are swinging your driver, appropriately, what I'd recommend is maybe going and get professionally fitted. I'd recommend somewhere like Club Champion. Not sure if there's somewhere like that near you. Club Champion, they have those in major cities across the United States. I'm not sure if they're anywhere else or not. I'm not sure if they're outside the United States, but as far as I know, they're just in the United States and in major cities. Golf Digest, if there's not one near you, Golf Digest usually comes out with a list every year of the top 100 fitters in the country. I can't speak for every single one of the fitters on that list, but I do know of some of the ones that I've seen on there that I've been to, I would say that they are reputable, good fitters. So obviously word of mouth, if you know anybody that's gotten to somebody and had really good experience and got set up really good, then obviously that would be a good place to go as well. So that's what I'd maybe look at to get that worked out. Because it could be that you're maybe have a driver that's, maybe not quite set up for you the right way. Maybe you could get a few more miles per hour if you shortened it. Or maybe it's too short and you need to lengthen it. I don't know. It just depends on what's going on there. So usually longer driver means that you can swing it faster, but if you can't handle that length, then you're not going to be able to swing it faster. So it's like if I took, if I took a long drive guy, they've got their driver to the max, 48 inches. I probably would have a little hard time getting much more out of that driver than what I am with my current driver, which is 45 and a half. So it just depends on longer driver doesn't always necessarily mean that. All right, so Robert B says, Q, I was watching Office Hours on my cell phone yesterday and asked a few questions, but my phone then went haywire. Any chance I can listen to your answers during your hour yesterday somehow? Yes, so you can watch archived Office Hours pretty easily. So if you go to the top of the page, you'll see the Office Hours tab. If you hover your mouse over that, that'll expand a little bit of a menu there. You'll go to Office Hours Highlights. When you go to that page, you'll see the highlights from last week. And then below that, you'll see the archived Office Hours. So it'll just be like a little playlist that shows all the Office Hours. And you can go in there and see yesterday's Office Hours in its entirety on there if you would like. So yeah, go ahead and check that out if you would like. And you can see if your questions got answered on there. Gerald H says, what's the distance reduction I should expect by choking down on my irons? My driver's swing speed is 100 miles per hour. My 7-iron is 162, and my 8-iron is 150. How much to choke down for a 155-yard shot? Typically for me, I think it's going to be different for everybody. But for me, typically if I choke down an inch, it'll take 10 yards or so off. So that could be, I would start out with an inch, choke down an inch, and see a lot of what these yardages are. It's really just guess. It's trial and error. You got to guess and check. So I would choke down an inch, see if that takes off about 5 yards. If it takes off too much, then I would just choke down a little bit less. But yeah, for me, it's typically about 10, 12 yards, depending on the club, because you may lose a little bit more yards. For instance, if I choke down on a pitching wedge, it may only knock off, 7 yards if I choke down an inch. Whereas on a 4-iron, if I choke down an inch, it may take off, 15, 18 yards, something like that. So depending on the club that you're hitting, it can take off more or less because the clubs go further than others. So you're really just going to have to kind of trial and error those things to see how far, so that how much. But typically, it's going to be about 10 yards. For the most part, is what I've noticed or what I've seen. All right. So Michael G says, hi Q, for pitching, I do not hinge my wrist at all, as I find it makes it easier to control my distance, just controlling the height of the backswing. Is there any advantage to hinging the wrists while pitching? So it can help you to get a little bit more speed, a little steeper angle of attack as well if you're trying to get a little bit more spin on it. It can help you to get a little bit more ball first contact because your angle of attack. If you don't hinge your wrists, I like that in a sense, kind of the dead wrist approach. The only thing, there's a couple things I don't like about it, and you may want to look at this on video. But typically, what I see with people who don't hinge their wrists, they feel like they're keeping their wrist solid throughout the swing, so they don't hinge their wrist here, but in the follow through, they go like this. So they don't hinge their wrist, and then they go like that. Is typically what I see. That's an exaggeration, but they'll see a little bit of a flippiness at contact. And then people who do hinge the wrist, they usually are able to have a little bit of lag coming in, and then it makes it easier to get some forward shaft lean and compression on the ball at impact. So that's one thing I don't like about it. The other thing I don't really like about it is that when you do that, a lot of times you come in too shallow. So if you, let's say you were keeping your wrist nice and solid and keeping and not letting the club pass in front of your hands at impact. Even if you were doing that, you're probably coming in super shallow with the turf. And if you come in too shallow, then it can make it difficult to make good contact on the ball. But for the most part, as long as you're looking on camera and you're seeing that you're not doing this, then I don't have any issue with what you're doing. So the pitching, the hinging of the wrist can help you to get a little bit more speed. It can help you to get some more forward shaft lean. It can help you to get a steeper angle of attack on the ball, making it a little bit easier to get ball first contact. But if it works better for you to do it kind of in your way, which a lot of tour players pitch the ball that way. Great pitchers of the ball. Steve Stricker, Jason Day pitches the ball that way. So there's definitely a lot of benefits to doing it that way. You could, the argument on the other side is that you may be able to be a little bit more consistent if you keep the wrist solid. But I would look on camera and see if that's actually what's going on, because what you may feel like is going on may not be the reality. All right. So Robert B says, concentrating on turning my left shoulder to its maximum produces a great swing results, but not concentrating on that gives me terrible results. Okay. So what's likely happening without that 100% maximum shoulder turn, so that I know when I've likely done that and quickly correct it. So concentrating on turning my left shoulder to its maximum produces great swing results, but not concentrating on that gives me terrible results. So what's likely happening without that 100% maximum shoulder turn, so that I know I've likely not done that and I can quickly correct it. So it sounds like, if you're not getting good results, then it's probably a good indication that you're not turning your shoulders. So you probably just need to always focus on turning your shoulders and getting a good shoulder turn, so that you can get the good results. I guess I don't quite understand what your question is. It sounds like you're saying that you get great results when you get a good shoulder turn and bad results when you don't, and you're wondering what's happening when you get bad results. It kind of sounds like you've already answered your question. You're not turning your shoulders, right? So if you get a bad result, it's most likely from not turning your shoulders. You probably need to make sure that you're concentrating on that and making it second nature, so that you don't have to think about it in the future. So, and when you don't turn your shoulders, there's all kinds of things that can happen. One, you typically won't get as much club head speed. Your sequencing, may be off. You could be, you could start down quick in the downswing because you don't get that full shoulder turn, because you feel like you have to hurry in the downswing to get any kind of speed. There's all kinds of things that happen. It's hard to say without exactly seeing your swing. But I would say if you get a bad result, it's most likely, it sounds like it's from not getting that full shoulder turn. So I would just always be focusing on and concentrating on getting that full shoulder turn, so that you can get good results all the time. And then eventually, over time, that's going to become second nature, and you're not going to have to think about it. You can move on to working on other things to improve your game. All right. So go ahead and keep getting your questions on here. I got one more question on here. But go ahead and keep getting your questions on there, and we'll keep getting them answered. So John K says, as someone who travels a lot for business, can you recommend some exercises that I can do to help build routine? So I think you're looking for kind of like fitness type stuff. We do have a fitness section on the website. It's not comprehensive, but it is going to have some exercises that you can do. Most of them, I imagine, you could do from your hotel room. So I would check that out. Joe Yoon was kind enough to record some videos with us. And give us some good exercises to give people. It's mainly just stretching for the most part. If you're looking for a full fitness regimen, I will tell you, we're not experts in fitness. That's part of the reason why we had Joe Yoon come in and do those videos for you, because he is an expert in fitness. But if you're looking for some great information about fitness as it pertains to golf, I'd recommend going to mytpi.com. MyTPI is TPI is Titleist Performance Institute. Clay, myself, and Robin, we are TPI certified golf instructors. So basically, we got certified to where we can do a physical screening on someone and see that you have a limitation. And there are other disciplines that also take this training. So fitness professionals and medical professionals. And there's differences between all of us, right? So as a golf professional, basically what I can do is I can give you the screening and I can see, oh, okay, you've got a shoulder issue or you've got something else going on, or maybe, your hamstrings are really tight or something like that. And basically what I would do is I would teach around that. I would try to get you to swing the club in the best way, knowing those physical limitations. What a fitness instructor would do is they may look at you and be like, okay, well, let's do some of these stretches. Let's try to strengthen this a little bit so that you can do this and that. That's what a fitness instructor would do. A medical professional, what they may do is they may see, oh, okay, you're out of alignment here, and this is stopping you from being able to make this movement, and they may be able to put you back in alignment and so on and so forth. So basically, what you want to do is go to a fitness professional for fitness advice and go to a golf professional for golf instruction advice. You wouldn't go to a fitness professional to ask how to fix your slice, right? So just like you wouldn't go to a golf professional to ask how you, do exercises that are best, give me a fitness program. Because we're just not professionals or experts in that. I assume there probably are some instructors out there that are both golf instructors and fitness instructors, but I tend to like to be more on the golf instruction side to help people more with their golf game. That's a whole nother area. It would be really hard to be a very good expert in either one of those, and both of those actually. So what I'd recommend is going to mytpi.com. And you can actually work with someone in your area, you can work with someone locally, and then, they can give you something to go on the road and work with that. So what I'd recommend is go to mytpi.com, and you can search for an expert in your area. If you go to the top of their webpage, it'll say find an expert. If you click on that, you can find an expert in your area. You can just put in your city, your area code, anything like that. Most likely there'll be someone around you that is TPI certified as a fitness, and you can sort it by the type of person that you're looking for. So if you're looking for a golf instructor, a fitness instructor, or a medical professional, you can search it by that. So that's what I'd recommend doing. And also on my TPI's website, they have tons and tons of exercises on there that you can see. I don't believe they give you any full scale programs because those are, TPI instructor, a fitness instructor is going to give you one that's personalized to you. But I imagine, what I would do is probably just start with the fitness stuff that we have on the website and see how that does for you. And if you're looking for something more comprehensive and personalized to you, then I would seek out a TPI certified instructor to get you something that works best for you. Sorry, I wish I could help more on that, but I'm just not an expert in that sort of thing. All right. So Michael G says, thanks for your answer. When pitching, my ball position is a bit back and I get 95% clean contact, ball first, center of the face. As you said, though, I do not get much spin doing it without hinging. Yeah. So the hinging probably gives you a little bit more speed, which is going to give you more spin. If you're looking for more spin, there's a few things that you can do. One, you got to make sure that you get ball first contact. Ball first contact is essential. And another thing, kind of like what I was talking about, you may feel like you are getting forward shafting, but you're not. You may feel like you're getting ball first contact, but you may not be. If the ball doesn't have much spin on it, then it's a good indication that you're not getting ball first contact. A lot of times people, and I'm guilty of this myself, I'll hit a half inch behind the golf ball and it will feel like ball first contact. But the reality is that I hit ground. And whenever you hit the ground, what happens is the blades of grass and the moisture in the ground, it gets in the grooves and on the face. And then when the ball hits the face, it will kind of slip on the face a little bit and it won't grab the ball and allow it to spin. So you need to make sure that you're actually getting that ball first contact. The other thing is low on the grooves. Getting that that strike low on the grooves is also going to help you get a little bit more spin. So that's what I'd be looking at: low on the groove contact, really, really clean contact on the face, and loft. If you're not using enough loft, you're not going to get enough spin. So those would be three things: loft, really, really clean strike, and low on the face. That's going to give you plenty of spin. So if you have one where you know you're really going to have to spin it, then I would try to do those things. I would recommend going and practicing those things for sure before you try that sort of thing. All right. So Dennis G says, Clay's latest video discusses a squat to start the downswing and foot movement. Can you elaborate on this as it relates to swing speed? Thanks. So, well, as it relates to swing speed, you know, if you're basically what Clay was talking about, and we see this quite often, we see people that come to the clinics and they kind of just stand straight legged. They don't really get any in an athletic stance. We see a lot of people, they just kind of stand like this, and they really just swing their arms around their body. So what Clay's talking about in that video is kind of to get into an athletic stance, you know, get some bend. So a lot of times we'll just see people like this. You know, they'll just be like this, and they'll just swing their arms. You need to get in an athletic stance here and go up to the top where you're really kind of using your legs and you're building momentum from the ground up with your legs and being able to turn your legs. So you're not really going to be able to turn your hips if you're like this. If your legs are pretty straight, it's going to be hard to turn your legs, especially with much power. You got to get some flex in those legs so that you can really turn your hips back and forth and create some momentum with your lower body. So the best way to kind of think about that is, you know, if you're baseball players, you know, think about, you know, if you ever played baseball growing up or anything like that, think about like if the ground ball was coming at you, like you wouldn't stand there with your feet completely straight or with your leg completely straight and your back straight. You would get into an athletic position so that you can move. That's the same thing you want to do in your golf swing. You want to be in athletic position. Another good way to think about it is imagine, and I do this with people at the clinics all the time, is I tell them to imagine that I'm running at them. Like I'm running full tilt at them and I'm going to run them over. What are you going to do? You know, if you see me running at you full tilt and, you know, I'm trying to run you over, what are you going to do? Are you going to stand there with your legs, or are you going to brace yourself and get into a really athletic position? And I tell you, you kind of start to understand exactly what it is. Now, you know, we did have a guy who used to play in the NFL that came, and he's like 6'7", so I couldn't really use that with him. But that's kind of the feeling that you want to have, is that somebody's kind of running at you, and you got to think, what kind of position, athletic position, do I want to be at? So that's mainly what that video is all about, and that's going to allow you to create momentum with your legs. Don't get me wrong, 85-90% of your speed is going to come from your arms. 85-90% of your speed. You know, if I were to not turn my hips at all, if I were to just keep my legs completely straight and just swing my arms in front of me, I could probably swing about 85-90% of what I would with my normal speed, where I'm generating momentum with my legs. But, you know, that's not the most efficient way to swing. And I'm also not going to get very good, you know, I'm not going to have very good swing mechanics, because I'm almost always, if I'm not using my legs, I'm almost always going to flip the club. Whereas if I'm generating momentum with my legs, now I'm able to rotate my body open and get this club to release out in front and get forward shaft lean and all those things. So that's another way that helps you get distance, that helps you de-loft the face, which makes you have more compression. So imagine this is a 50-degree wedge right here. So straight up and down, that's 50 degrees of loft right here. Now, if I were to get, let's say, 10 degrees of forward shaft lean, now I'm in the 40 degrees of loft range. That's something like probably about an 8-iron or something like that, you know, that of loft that I've gone here. I've taken this 50-degree wedge and turned it into an 8-iron loft. So that makes a big difference. Imagine hitting, you know, your 8-iron, your pitching wedge as far as your 8-iron. Now, it probably won't go quite that far because the length of the club is different. You won't swing it as fast, but, you know, somewhere between your 8 and 9-iron is how much you get if you de-lofted it like 10 degrees. So that's how it can get you more distance for sure. But the main thing is creating momentum with your lower body. It's almost like I don't know if you've seen the momentum train drill, or not the drill, but the momentum train video. I think it's either a part of the compression line or the straight line release. But basically, Clay talks about how there's a video, or there's a train that's going 60 miles per hour. And then you have another train on top of that that's going 60 miles per hour. And then you have another train on top of that that's going 60 miles per hour. Well, that train that's on top is only going 60 miles per hour relative to the train that's underneath it. But relative to the ground, it's going 180 miles per hour, because the two trains underneath that are both going 60 miles per hour. So if you add all those up, 60, 60, 60, that's 100 miles per hour that it's going. That's what's happening in the golf swing. If my legs and my hips are that first train, that 60 mile per hour train that's going, and then my torso and my shoulders are that next 60 miles per hour train, and then my arms, my hands, and the club, that's the last train. That's that 60 miles per hour train that's on top. Now, the arms, the shoulders, the arms, and the club is going to amount for a lot more of that. It's more like the bottom train's going, 10 miles per hour, and then the middle train's going 10 miles per hour, and then the top train is probably going like 80 miles per hour. But I think you see what I'm saying. You're generating momentum. You can get a lot of speed from swinging all arms, not using your legs at all, but you're not going to get your maximum amount of speed, or the most efficient amount of speed that you can get. And you're not going to be able to swing very good mechanically if you don't get the legs involved. You're not going to be able to release the club out in front. You're not going to have a very powerful swing. You're not going to feel as effortless. You see those guys on tour. I mean, they're swinging. A lot of those guys, they're swinging 120 miles per hour, and it doesn't really look like it. It looks like they're swinging like 100 miles per hour or something like that. But it's because they create momentum with their lower body. If you look at Freddie Couples, right? Freddie Couples, swings near 120 miles per hour. At least he used to. Up in the upper 100, 115 plus miles per hour. It certainly doesn't look like it, right? But he really gets his legs involved and pushes with his legs. He gets high hands, big shoulder turn, and things like that. And that allows him to create that really, really smooth distance. Ernie Els is another guy. He's always been a pretty long hitter. He's a big guy. They call him the Big Easy. But, I mean, he really gets his legs involved and creates momentum with his legs, and it enables him to get that speed. So that's where it comes from. That's why it's really, really important to do that. If you're looking for a great drill to kind of work on that, not only the one in that video is good, but in the 20-minute distance fix, the sumo step drill, that's a really good one to really force you to get your legs involved. In that drill, you're starting with your legs together, and you start that backswing, and you start stepping forward. And that's really forcing you to kind of get in that. When you're stepping forward, you're getting that squat into the ground, and that's really forcing you to get your hips rotating open. So I'd recommend doing that drill. And you don't have to go to the range to do that. Do that in your backyard for 10, 15 minutes every evening or in the morning or whatever, and you're going to get a really good feeling for that. If you got room in your garage, do it in your garage. So, yeah, highly recommend doing some of those to really start getting the legs more involved in the swing. All right. So Gerald H. Actually, excuse me for just a second here. I will be right back. All right, so still getting over my cold a little bit, feeling a lot better, but still getting over that. So Gerald H says, how hard should I swing my wedges? 100%, 90%, or what? How about the mid irons and hybrids? For gaining distance, you suggest an aggressive swing. So that's a good question. So basically, you swing as hard as what you can control. So in our 20-minute distance fix course, we do recommend that you swing 100% effort when you are speed training. That's not necessarily going to be your playing speed. Now, if you can control it and and things like that with a 100% effort swing, then go ahead and use that. But most people, you lose a little bit of control when they're swinging 100% effort. The reason why you want to swing 100% effort in our 20-minute distance fixed course is because we're trying to train you to use the bigger muscle groups, to recruit the biggest muscles that react the fastest and contract the most, and that's going to allow you to get the most distance. So this is something called the size principle that we are trying to take advantage of when doing the 20-minute distance fix. So that's all a part of the neural adaptation training. So basically what happens is as you get more comfortable using those big muscles and things like that, your 100% effort speed is going to go up, but also your playing speed is going to go up. So if I tell you a little story about myself, when I started doing some speed training, I was swinging around 110 miles per hour. And my maximum 100% effort swing was 114 miles per hour. So I did some speed training and I was able to get that. Basically, I went through the 20-minute distance fix and I was able to get that 100% effort swing up to 124 miles per hour. And that's with doing the range of motion drills, the sequencing drills, and so on and so forth, and swinging as hard as I can as I went through it. So over the course of that time, I got to where I was able to swing 124 miles per hour as my max speed. And then my playing speed went up to about 117, 118. And that felt like a normal playing speed, in control kind of swing. So my in control swing wasn't really that much different than my 100% effort swing. And I don't know if that's the same for a lot of people, but I think for some people it is like that. And for some people, their playing speed swings a lot lower than their 100% effort swing. But in my case, it's somewhat closer. But I tell you what, if I went and I tried to swing 110 miles per hour, once I got up to that 124 and my normal playing speed was 117, 118, when I tried to swing 110 miles per hour, it felt so slow. It was like sloth-like. It felt like I was intentionally trying to swing really, really slow. And that's what neural adaptation is. So that's why we want you to do that. We want you to swing 100% effort so that you can get that neural adaptation and raise that playing speed along with it. Now, with your irons and everything else, it's kind of the same thing. You swing as hard as you can and still have control. You got to find that happy medium. It's going to be different for some people. Like for me, I like to take, for me, it's pretty comfortable to take a pretty aggressive swing. I swing my irons pretty hard, compared to what some people might. Now, for some people, it may feel too out of control. They don't have a very good, awareness of their face in their contact and their ground contact and things like that when they swing harder. So you got to find the happy medium that works best for you. And that's really with all clubs. With wedges, you definitely, it's more about control than anything else, right? Wedges, you're really trying to lock in at a specific distance, for sure. Irons, it's kind of that middle of the range. You definitely want to hit it far, but you also want to hit it at a certain range as well. So you kind of have to take, if you hit your 8-iron 4 yards longer, then it's probably not that big a deal, right? You may go over the green if the pin's really in the back and you're being aggressive. But in most cases, if you hit your long irons a little bit longer with an aggressive swing, it's not that big a deal. But if you hit a wedge, 4 or 5 yards further, that's usually not going to be the best shot. In many cases. So you really want to dial in those wedges. So the wedges, you may even tone off a little bit more if it helps you to get a little bit more control and be able to control that distance and so on and so forth. So you really just have to kind of go out and find what works best for you. I wish I could give you like a blanket answer that works for everybody. But in my situation, I like to swing aggressively with pretty much all my clubs, with the wedges as well. Because I find if I don't swing aggressively at the wedge, I usually decelerate and don't hit the ball very far. So for me, I need to swing aggressively with pretty much everything, and that suits my game. But that may not suit your game or Bob's game or or Bill's game or whoever. You got to find what works best for you. So that's what I'd recommend doing. But give it a try, see what works best for you, and go with that. All right. So Robert B says, I watched Clay Ballard's All Angles video. angles. Not sure which video that is. It looks to me that his head doesn't move an inch up or down or left or right. Is that a must, or is that some head movement allowed in those directions? So I think you're talking about the video where Clay shows his swing with all kinds of different clubs and things like that. So Clay's head does move actually a little bit. If you were to actually put lines on it, I know it probably doesn't look like it. It's not moving a ton. And with most tour players, it's not moving a ton, but I can go over some head movement here in just a second. But basically, if you use an app like V1 Golf, you can take a line and put it up on top of a player's head, and you can put another one on the side, and you can see how much exactly is moving. As long as that camera angle or the camera is completely still, you'll be able to see that. So basically, here's what you're going to see with most tour players. If you were to draw a line on their head right here, and you draw basically a line on each side of their head, what you're going to see is in the backswing, typically what you're going to see is they're going to get a little bit lower. So 2 to 3 inches lower. Sometimes they don't get any lower, but usually it's about 2 or 3 inches lower is what you'll see. And that's them loading up in the backswing. Sometimes you'll see the head will move just a little bit away from the target. Not always, but some tour players, you'll see the head will move just a little bit away from the target. And I'm talking like an inch, 2 max. You don't want to be, this is definitely something you don't want to do, is this. If you're doing this, it's going to be really, really difficult to get your weight to transfer to the lead side because this is sliding. And it's also going to be really, really difficult to get the hips to rotate because instead of rotating, you're doing this. So if you look from this angle, if I'm doing that, you can see I'm not really rotating my hips. I'm just sliding my hips. So you want to make sure that you're rotating your hips back, because a lot of your shoulder rotation is going to come from the hip rotation, roughly 40-some% of it, okay? So if we don't turn our hips back, it's going to be difficult to get that full shoulder turn. If we're sliding our hips, typically our shoulder turn is going to look like that. If I'm turning my hips, now I can get a big full shoulder turn. So we don't want to be moving the head, sliding the head way off. We want to be, if it moves just a little bit as your momentum kind of moves in this direction, that's fine. An inch, 2 max, but if it's moving more than that, you're most likely sliding, and you may want to draw draw a line on the outside of your hip, outside of your ankle, and if you see your hip going into that line, then that means that you're sliding. You're going to see with tour players, if you draw that line on their hip right there using something like the V1 Golf app, which you can get for free on Android or Apple devices, if you draw a line on any tour player, you're not going to see them go into that. You're going to see them kind of turn off of that and actually start to come off of it in that last part of the backswing. So let's go back to the head movement here. Kind of got off a little bit of a tangent there. But in the head movement, you're going to see tour players that move a little bit down. And then you'll see in the downswing, they'll start to even move further down. So they'll move further down and they'll start to move forward. So their momentum is moving forward and down. And you'll see, compared to address, you're going to see the head's gotten probably 4 to 6 inches lower, and it's moved forward just a little bit. And then you have contact, and then sometimes you'll see, every now and then, you'll see the head come up just a little bit as they're coming into contact. That's fine. But what you will never see is a tour player whose head is higher than they were at address. You will never see that, because if my head's higher, that means that I'm going to end up flipping the club because I'm making space for the club to flip through there. You've got to get lower to get your hands low to be able to get that forward shaft lean and compression on the ball, and that's something that all tour players do. And that's what you're going to see with Clay's swing. You're going to see that he gets probably 3 or 4 inches lower than what he was at address. It may not look like that throughout the swing because it does kind of move slowly down throughout the swing. But that's what's happening there. And then as you get into that straight line release, that's when you'll see the head really start to come all the way up into a full finish, and you're finishing over with your head over your lead foot. That's pretty much what you'll see with head movement in almost all tour players, including Clay as well. He's not a tour player, but in anybody who's a really good player getting really good compression on the ball, that's typically what you're going to see. So again, you'll see if you're looking from face on, you'll see the head go down a little bit in the backswing, maybe a little bit back, but mostly just down. 2 or 3 inches typically. And then the downswing, you'll see the head start move forward, and it will also move down another 2 to 3 inches into contact. Every now and then you'll see a tour player pop up just a little bit as they're coming into contact. I'm talking like an inch. So they'll be coming down like this, and then as they come into contact, they come up just like an inch. Rory McIlroy is one of those. He kind of comes up just a little bit. He's coming up, but overall, he's still very low as he's coming in because he gets some very good compression on the ball. And then after that straight line release, you'll see most tour players will start to come up out of their posture. Some players stay in there longer. For instance, Dustin Johnson, he is one that really chases the ball through. You'll see him like this until his hands are kind of get past his chest. Then you'll start to see him come up and through. But it requires a lot of flexibility to be able to do that. In fact, I just felt like a big time stretch in my hip when I tried to kind of do that. So some people are going to be physically capable of doing that, but for the most part, straight line release. That's when you're going to start coming up out of your posture. Your head's going to start coming up. But it's not something. Just to answer your question a little bit more, it's not something that I would say you need to be really, really concerned with. What you really need to be concerned with is your spine angle. Because if your spine is stable and is not moving around everywhere, that head movement, you're going to get that good head movement as a product of that. So that's what I'd really be focusing on. And that's why it's one of the pieces of the top speed golf system. It's one of the number one pieces to consistency. So I'd be looking at that and making sure that you're nice and stable. Because if you're moving way off the ball, then your spine angle is going to go like this, right? We want that spine angle to be nice and stable and then to move forward and get more angled away in the downswing. And if you do that, that head movement is going to happen as a product of that. But great question, Robert. Thank you. All right. So Richard S. Said, yesterday you mentioned being as long as your opponents off the tee, but shorter with the irons due to lack of shaft lean. I had a similar problem for many of the years I have played this game. This leads me to ask about release. Speed has to come from somewhere. Is it possible that the wrist release and thumbs down either prior or at impact while the right wrist is still bent back shaft lean? So basically the reason why the irons, you're probably going to be swinging with the same speed, whether you get forward shaft lean or not. The difference is the loft. So if you're not getting forward shaft lean, so it's kind of like what I explained earlier, this is a 50-degree wedge. If I have it no forward shaft lean straight up and down, I'm hitting the ball with 50 degrees of loft, right? Not to mention, if I also, well, actually, we'll talk about that after this. So if I'm hitting it here, I'm hitting it with 50 degrees of loft. If I get forward shaft lean, let's say I'm taking 30% of the loft off the face here, or so. Let's say I'm getting 12 degrees of forward shaft lean. I'm turning this, now I have 38 degrees of loft here. That's something like an 8-iron, right? So that's going to make a big difference in how far the ball goes, hitting the ball with less loft. That's really the biggest difference there. With a driver, you can kind of get away with that because you're hitting up on it off a tee. If you flip with the driver, you can get away with it a little bit more because the ground's not in the way, right? You can hit up on the golf ball. I can flip the club, hit up on the golf ball. Now I'm adding loft, so I'm going to hit the ball probably higher, but I'm still able to get good contact on the face, and I'm able to get some good speed. I'm able to hit up on the golf ball to get some good launch conditions. So, all those things are happening, and you can get away with it with the driver. Now, you would probably hit the driver a little bit better if you did get some forward shaft lean and were, de-lofting the face and hitting up on it. That'd be a more compressed shot with low spin, but you're able to get away with it with the driver for the most part. Now, the other thing about it is that if I have no forward shaft lean, meaning I'm coming in and I'm flipping the club like this, well, what happens is this club comes in very, very level with the turf. And the only way for me to get a good strike on the face is basically if I sweep it off the turf. So that leaves my margin for error to be very minimal. And a lot of times you're going to end up hitting thin shots that go low on the face, and those end up being more spinny. If you're hitting into the wind, you hit it low on the face, that ball is going to spin and balloon way up in the air, and you're going to lose a ton of distance. So that's why You know, if I'm able to get forward shaft lean and hit down and through the ball, I'm able to get that ball more higher on the face. And I'm also able to get that ball first contact more easily as well to avoid those thin shots and even those chunks. Because if you come in very, very level with the turf, you're going to struggle with chunks as well as thins, because if you just hit that ground just a little bit before, you're going to end up with kind of a chunky shot there. So that's why it's real important. I'm not really sure exactly what you're asking, but you're not going to gain a ton of distance, most likely going from releasing the club out in front. Some people might, because their mechanics may change a little bit. In my case, my speed really wasn't any different. When I got to where I was starting to get some forward shaft lean, it was really all about the compression that I was getting, really getting more compression, really de-lofting this face and hitting it more like a sledgehammer instead of more like a glancing blow on the golf ball. That's really what makes the biggest difference there. So Michael G says, when I hit it far, I feel that all the force is coming from the legs with zero effort felt from my upper body or arms. The squat move is very effective, not only for increased speed, but for me, it also increased consistently as it truly encourages proper sequencing. That's exactly right, Michelle. Or Michael, thanks for sharing. Not sure if you really had a question there, but thanks for sharing. That's exactly right. And everybody's going to feel different things. If you're someone who's a very upper body centric, don't use your legs at all, and you just swing your arms, you may need to feel like you're using pretty much all upper body to swing the club until you get more comfortable with that, and then you can really start firing the arms. Everything about golf, a lot of what golf is and improving and changing what you do is adjusting your feel to get the desired result that you want. What you feel and what I feel are going to be two different things. It's like pain tolerance, right? You know, some people, they go get a shot in their arm, they go get their flu shot, and it's the most painful thing that they've ever experienced. Some people, they sit in a chair for 4 hours and get a tattoo, getting flu shot after flu shot after flu shot, and it doesn't really hurt to them. So everyone's got different tolerances and feelings and things like that. So what you feel and what I feel and what a tour player feels are going to be completely different things. So you may need to adjust your feel to something else to get the desired result that you want. It sounds like that's what you've done there. So nice work. Keep up the hard work, and hopefully you keep on improving. So we got another 10 minutes or so on here. So if you got any more questions, let me know. Go ahead and post them on there. I don't know if people went to Halloween parties last night and not up early enough this morning. But yeah, if you want to post your questions on here, I'll be happy to answer them for you. So yeah, another 10 more minutes, and then we'll have a great weekend. All right. So Robert B says, how long should we keep the head down? Wait for the right shoulder to pull up. Wait until the club head passes the eyes. What? So it's kind of like what I talked about earlier with the head movement. It's going to be more about when that club gets in that straight line release position is when you're going to start, when the head's going to actually start to come up. But I wouldn't try to feel like you're doing this as you're coming down. Feel like you're opening up, you get in that straight line release, and then you start to come up out of it. What I see people all the time is they're so focused on keeping their head down that they do this. You can't do that, because you're just gonna lose a lot of speed when you do that. So go ahead, hit the ball, let it come all the way up as you're coming through, and that will allow you to get your speed as well. So Dennis G says, you mentioned earlier that 85% of swing speed is created with arms and hands. What can we work on to improve arm-hand speed? Thanks. So the biggest thing is just getting a big shoulder turn. Getting your shoulder turn, getting a big full shoulder turn, because that's going to allow you to get more space and time to accelerate the club. So if I bring the club here, if I only bring the club right here, then I'm not going to be able to get as much speed as if I'm back here, right? I have more space and time to accelerate that club. So that would be what I would recommend there, is creating as much space. So big shoulder turn, high hands. So we don't want to see swings that are like this, because that's going to be really difficult to create speed because I don't have as much space. So get the hands up high So that way now I have more space and time to accelerate the club and be able to create speed. So that'd be number one for sure. Number two is really just swinging hard. It's like I was talking about earlier, that neural adaptation stuff. That's real. It's not. I think a lot of people look at that, and I did at first too, because I don't know if you know, guys, but I actually have a mechanical engineering background. This right here, this is Grubby. It's from the engineering school that I went to, South Dakota School of Mines. We were the hard rockers, but I have a mechanical engineering degree. So everything with me, I like to see mechanical. It's like I like to see things that are going on. The electrical side of mechanical engineering and things like that, I always struggled with a little bit because you can't really see it as much. Excuse me. You can't really see it as much. So that's what the neural adaptation is in gaining speed. It's what's happening internally. You can't really see it, but it's happening. It's like what I told you, when I went from 110 or 110 being my normal playing speed to 117, 118, that was from raising my as hard as I could swing from 114 to 124. So my playing speed went up as well. And when I went to try to swing 110 miles per hour, it felt sloth-like. It just felt so slow. I intentionally had to swing a lot slower to make that happen. So that's a big reason why you're able to gain club head speed. The best way to work on all of it, you not only need to work on your arms, but the legs, everything, is to work through that 20-minute distance fixed course. It really is. It works on the three main factors, which is one, creating that bigger range of motion, which is what I just talking about. So that's getting high hands, big shoulder turn, big hip turn, getting that heel off the ground, turning your feet out to increase your range of motion. All of those things are to help you to get a freer range of motion so you can create more space and time to accelerate the club. That's huge. That's a big part of it. Another part of it is the sequencing part, which is from the ground up. That's what happens with your legs in the downswing. You get that proper weight shift to your lead side. You get that downswing starting with the hips, the torso, the shoulders. You're getting that lag going, and you get that club to release out in front by rotating that body open, creating that momentum. That's the second part of it, which is sequencing. And the third part is that neural adaptation. You do those three things over the course of 3 weeks going through that program, you're going to raise your club head speed. I would say by at least 10 miles per hour. In most cases, it's a lot more than that. But most people are raising their club head speed by a lot. So as long as you are physically capable, as long as you can swing the club as hard as you can, then that is the program that I would be doing. If you have some physical limitations, you have a bad shoulder, a bad hip, or you have injuries and things like that, 20-minute distance fix is probably not the right thing for you. I'd probably be just working on the power turn and trying to get some lag in the top speed lag section of the top speed golf system. But if you're physically capable, I'd be doing that 20-minute distance fix without a doubt to raise your club head speed. It's really the number one way that we found to do it, and quickly. It's a 3-week program, and we're seeing people raise their club head speed by 20 plus miles per hour on the regular. That's not every now and then we get somebody like that. That's like a solid 40-50% of people that are doing that. So get out there, get to work on that, and you're going to really start hitting the ball a lot further. It's really one of the number one correlations to lowering your handicap is club head speed. So it's definitely a big deal that you want to work on. All right. So Gerald H says, when I back off an iron, I swing consistently or I constantly pull it. What's the fix? So I would say, instead of backing off of an iron, so instead of swinging slower, what I'd recommend doing is actually swinging, still swinging aggressively with the club, but just choking up on it instead. That's what I do. I do the same kind of thing. I don't have the same timing and things like that when I try to back off the club or swing easy with it. I'm much better off taking an aggressive swing and just choking up on the club. So usually if you choke up on the club, that'll take off some yardage. So instead of, if this is where you normally swing the club, then to take some off of it, I'd maybe do that. Or I'd maybe just use, one club less and try to go after it a little bit. That's kind of what my recommendation is. Or you could take, instead of backing off of it, you could take an aggressive swing, just a shorter swing. So instead of taking an easy long swing, I would take a more aggressive kind of 3/4 swing and do it that way. That's what I would recommend. If you don't want to do that, a pull is caused by swinging kind of over the top and having the face closed. So I would actually try to push the ball. Try to feel like you're swinging in to out. If you're right-handed, I'd feel like you're swinging out to first base and you're hitting that ball out to first base when you swing easy. But to me, that seems like a much more difficult fix. I would rather choke up on the club, make the same exact swing, the aggressive swing that you normally do, that allows you to be consistent, and or take an aggressive 3/4 swing instead of a long, slow swing. So this will be the last question here, Richard S., and then we'll go ahead and start the weekend. All right, so Richard S. says, what I was asking, is it possible to release thumbs down prior to losing right wrist bend? So you're saying to do this, to do thumbs down before. So not really. That's not really a conventional way to hit the club. It's going to be hard to do that because your hands, in order to do that, your hands would have to be out here to make that happen. You see what I'm saying? So I have my thumb in the down position and I still have bend in it. But in order to hit the golf ball, I have to do that. And that's not really a normal way to move. Again, I'm not sure if I'm asking you're answering your question exactly, but it's possible, I guess, but I don't see how you're going to be able to naturally kind of swing with your hands kind of way out like that. That's not really a natural way to swing the club. So with that, we'll go ahead and wrap it up. Thanks for everybody for joining me today. I'll be back here on Monday, 3 p.m. Eastern time. So you can join me at that time. Everybody have a great weekend, and I will talk to you all next time. Thanks.